Hey guys, I'm your Props, and today I'm going to show you how I made a laser sword from Halo using some translucent filament, some resin, and some paint. If you guys want the files for this, I'll post the Thingiverse link in the description. As far as print settings go, I printed this with 2mm layer walls and with a 5% gyroid layer infill. And then I just printed this in some Hatchbox translucent filament. It's not perfectly clear, but it definitely diffuses light pretty well. So if you wanted to mod this for LEDs or something, I think it'd work pretty well. I then glued the two halves together using a little bit of super glue. You don't want to use too much, otherwise you get this white hazing on the sides of it where the excess super glue comes out, so just don't use a lot, otherwise it kind of ruins the translucent look of this whole thing. And I just wiped away most of the super glue using a piece of cardboard just to make sure that I didn't put too much on it. In the background, you guys can actually see some of the helmets that I'm working on right now, and I'll have some videos out for those hopefully soon, as long as sanding goes pretty well with those. I mixed up some translucent epoxy resin, just putting in a little bit of blue dye to help tint the resin a little bit blue, and then I went through and mixed it up, making sure to mix it for the amount of time that you're supposed to. I think it was like 30 seconds or whatever is what it recommends, and I just went through and mixed that up using some stir sticks. And then I went through and got a brush. I think I'm using an old sponge actually, but it doesn't really matter what you use. And then I went through and brushed that all over the energy sword just to strengthen it, since the way I printed it, the layer heights are horizontal to the whole length of the blade, and that doesn't make it very strong, so I'm just putting the resin on just to make sure that it has durability and is pretty strong, since I will be selling finished versions of these in my Etsy shop if you guys want to check those out. After the resin had cured, I went through and airbrushed on a translucent blue, and I just did a thin layer of this over the whole thing just to give the energy sword a nice blue look. If you want, you could also airbrush some white in some areas just to give it kind of that energy looking look that it has. I've seen a few cool versions of this where it has that, so I mean, if you want to, go ahead to, but I just didn't do that on this just because I like the just translucent blue on it all the way. I then went through and airbrushed on a gunmetal silver over the handle area, just making sure not to get any of that metallic silver on the actual blue of the blade. And I did a few coats of this just to get good even coverage. And then I went through and hit the whole thing with a gloss coat just to make sure all the paint stays on and that it has a nice glossy look to it. Overall, I'm really pleased with how this whole thing turned out. I really like how the thing is a little bit translucent, so if you put it up to the light, you can kind of see through it. Kind of gives it the energy look to that. And then the resin on top of that just gave it a nice sheen to it. And then the translucent blue helped give it a nice blue coloring. I just really like how the look of this whole thing turned out. If you guys don't mind checking out my Patreon, so you guys can get some behind the scenes access, as well as access to polls on what I'm going to make and stuff. Be sure to like and subscribe and leave a comment on what you guys want me to make next. I do have a few builds that I've planned out that you guys have requested, so I'm working on a few of those right now. This build was actually one of those builds, so just make sure to tell me what you guys want me to make and I'll get making them. See you guys next vid. Happy crafting and bye.